property visits can be misleading. In the Algarve, a home can look exceptionally strong in person and still carry subtle signals of hidden risk. In this video, I'll show you the red flags most buyers miss before they commit. Because by the time you arrive at a viewing, the property is often at its most persuasive. Lighting is controlled, presentation is intentional, and everything is designed to create confidence. But what matters is not just how a property looks in a moment. It's what it may be telling you underneath that presentation. What I've seen with many international buyers is that they often ask the right questions, but they still evaluate what is presented rather than what is implied. And that distinction matters. Because in the Algarve, especially in markets like Vilamoura, Quarteira, Quinta do Lago, and Vale do Lobo, a property can appear exceptionally strong in a viewing, while still carrying signals that deserve closer attention. The key is not to look harder, it's to look differently, to understand what certain details suggest rather than what they simply show. Before real estate, I spent 35 years as a mechanical engineer. In engineering, early warning signs are usually subtle. And that same principle applies when viewing property. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the main red flags to watch for during a viewing. Not dramatic issues, small signals that can point to larger patterns. The first thing to look for is inconsistency. A property that has been carefully built or renovated usually shows a certain coherence in the way it has been finished. When finishes vary significantly from room to room, or when some areas look recently corrected, while others remain less resolved, that can suggest reactive work rather than planned work. That does not automatically mean there is a problem, but it does mean you should ask why. Was the work done in stages? Was something concealed and later addressed? Or was the property simply upgraded without a consistent standard? The point is not to jump to conclusions. It is to notice where the pattern breaks. The second red flag is anything that suggests moisture or poor ventilation. In the Algarve, this is especially important because environmental conditions can create issues that are not always obvious in photographs. Pay attention to subtle odors, discoloration on walls, small areas of condensation, or spaces that feel enclosed and poorly ventilated. These signs may be minor, or they may indicate a deeper pattern of environmental interaction. Either way, they deserve attention. A well-presented property can still have a hidden moisture story. And that story is often easier to sense in person than in a listing. The third red flag is when the presentation feels too controlled. Good staging is normal, but if blinds are always closed, certain areas are not easily accessible, or the visit is structured in a way that limits visibility, it is worth slowing down. Sometimes that is practical. Sometimes it is intentional. The issue is not presentation itself. The issue is when the presentation starts to reduce transparency. Sophisticated buyers do not react to staging alone. They ask what the staging may be preventing them from seeing. The fourth red flag is the way the property feels physically. If a property feels unusually cool, warm, or stagnant, that can be worth noting. Temperature control can be temporary, but airflow and insulation leave a more honest impression over time. What you want to understand is how the property behaves naturally. Does it breathe properly? Is there balance between rooms? Does the space feel comfortable in a stable way, or only because it has been adjusted for the visit? Those are very different signals. The fifth red flag is context outside the property itself. During a visit, it is easy to become focused on the interior. But what surrounds the property matters just as much. Look at neighboring buildings, noise patterns, access routes, and any signs of future development. These factors can affect privacy, comfort, resale appeal, and long-term enjoyment. A beautiful home in the wrong immediate context can become a weaker decision than a more modest property in a better setting. You are not just buying walls and finishes, you are buying into a surrounding environment. One of the most important signals is what you are not shown. If questions lead to vague answers, or if documentation is not readily available, that matters. This does not automatically imply a problem, but it does indicate incomplete visibility. And incomplete visibility is where risk tends to accumulate. A confident seller, agent, or representative should be able to answer sensible questions clearly. If clarity is consistently avoided, that is a signal in itself. The final red flag is pressure. Sometimes urgency is real. Good properties can move quickly. But when the decision is encouraged before you have had the time to assess the fundamentals properly, that deserves caution. Sophisticated buyers tend to slow the process down, not accelerate it. They understand that clarity is more valuable than speed. If you are being pushed toward urgency before you are comfortable, it is worth asking why. I once worked with a buyer viewing an apartment near Vilamoura Marina. At first glance, everything looked strong, but there were small signals: a slight odor, freshly painted areas, and limited clarity around previous maintenance. Individually, none of those signs were decisive. Taken together, they suggested a pattern worth investigating. The buyer paused, asked for more detail, and eventually chose a different property with cleaner fundamentals. That is the value of reading subtle signals. So when you visit a property in the Algarve, you are not just observing what is there, you are interpreting what it suggests. The most valuable skill is not spotting obvious issues. It is recognizing subtle signals before they become expensive decisions. And that perspective can make a real difference when the property looks compelling, but the fundamentals are not yet fully clear. If you are considering buying in Vilamoura, Quarteira, Quinta do Lago, or Vale do Lobo, this framework can bring a high level of clarity to your decision. In the next video, I'll show you how to compare two properties objectively in the Algarve, so you can make decisions based on fundamentals rather than impressions. I'd be interested to know what you look for first during a viewing. When you walk through a property, are you seeing what is presented or what the property is actually telling you?